What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. I am Ken, and today, guys, I'm going to be taking a look at 10 movies from 1982 that I think you need to have in your 4K and Blu-ray collection. Just some incredible films. If you guys don't know, 1982, not only is it celebrating its 40th anniversary, so all the films that we're going to be talking about are all celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, which is really cool for this particular year, but 1982 is just one of the best years in film history, cinematic history. There are so many excellent movies that came out this year. I was picking between like 15 to 20 titles in my collection that I could have pulled from. I very consciously left out some really big ones, so if you guys notice some stuff that's not in here, I may be doing a part 2 at some point on the channel for sure. I want to do part 2s for all of these years because I think that all of the years that we dive into deserve a second look, because there's way more than 10 movies in every single year that you can pull from. So I love doing this series because I just love recommending movies to people, just kind of shining the spotlight on some films that you may not have heard of. Some of these most definitely you have heard of, but I also just love taking a look back at movies and films by year and just kind of pinpointing like what was going on at this time and what movies were coming out and who were big stars, who were big directors. I just think that that's really cool. So I love doing this series on the channel. And yeah, 1982, again, incredible year for movies. Lots of stuff to talk about. But before we get into it, first off, I need you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you like Blu-rays, 4Ks, physical media, all this stuff behind me right here, you'll definitely enjoy this channel. And also be sure to like this video and comment down below, guys. I know you've got some recommendations from 1982 that I'm not going to include in this video, that you're going to be shocked and appalled that I did not include in this video. So let me know about it in the comment section below. I love hearing all the recommendations from you guys. I think it's awesome. And then let me know what you think of my picks as well in that comment section. And then turn on the bell notifications for all future videos. So let's get right into it. And of course, I almost thought about not including this because you guys knew that I would. If you're a fan of the channel, if you've been watching my videos, you know how I feel about this movie. It is one of my favorites of all time. It is my number 2 favorite movie of all time. So I had to put it in here. It's E.T. E.T., guys. Look, E.T., it's an excellent movie. It's my favorite Steven Spielberg movie. It's one of the best coming-of-age movies, adventure movies, science fiction movies. It's so many different things in the one. It has an incredible score by John Williams. Every single time I hear the John Williams score in this movie, in particular at the end where they're taking off on the bikes and they're flying in the air, it literal goosebumps. I have goosebumps right now on my arms. The hair is standing up. I love everything about this movie. I love the relationship between Elliot, Henry Thomas Elliot, and E.T. I just love it. Everything. The effects look great. E.T. looks great in this movie. It's just one of the most important movies of all time to me personally. I grew up with this film. I watched this for the first time when I was 5 years old. I still watch it today, and it's just one of those movies that I feel like my opinion and my feelings on hasn't really changed over time. I loved it when I was a kid, and I love it so much now. It's a movie I've got to go back and rewatch with my kids, and they really enjoy it, and it's really cool watching them watch this movie and enjoy it with me. And it's just a timeless movie that never gets old to me. And every single time I watch it, I connect to it emotionally. And that doesn't happen with a lot of movies that you kind of grew up with. Some of you go back and you watch and you're like, I like this when I was a kid, but it doesn't really hold up that well now. But this is a great 4K edition as well. You can get E.T. on 4K for $13.89, so that's an absolute steal. It looks amazing in 4K. You're probably not going to get the box set. You'll probably just get this 4K case right here, but just one of the most important movies of all time to me. It's celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. I think it already celebrated its 40th anniversary. Absolutely adore and love this movie. It was a classic. As soon as it came out, it did wonderfully well at the box office, and I don't know what else to say about it. It's my number 2 favorite movie of all time. I absolutely love this movie. I could not include this in my 1982 list. You guys know how much I adore E.T. So E.T. is definitely, and I got it out of the way. It's done. We're done talking about E.T. Elliot. Be good. Okay, I'm done. But let's move on to my next recommendation, and that is the Slumber Party Massacre. Came out in 1982. In 1982, look, I'm a big horror fan. You're going to be seeing a lot of horror films show up on all of these lists because that's the genre that I've probably seen the most from. But this movie is a lot of fun. It is very goofy. It's very cheesy, very schlocky. It's very of its time. But I feel like it still holds up as a fun slasher movie of that era and just really highlights like what was going going on in the horror genre at that time. By this point, you've had Friday the 13th really taking off, Halloween coming back into the picture, and you didn't have Sleepaway Camp yet. I think that would come out the next year. So just a really fun movie, a fun cast of girls that are getting invaded by this serial killer, Russ Thorn, with the drill. Just a cool weapon. Like, I don't feel like you saw many serial killers or many killers with a drill before, and you certainly really haven't seen it after. So just an iconic, he's iconic just for that drill. And it was really groundbreaking at the time. Again, you had the cast of all females, you had a female director in this movie, and yeah, it's just a great movie. It's one that you'll watch and you'll be like, okay, this isn't this isn't as good as Halloween as far as a slasher or Friday the 13th, but I feel like in its own way, like, it has a certain charm to it that I feel like I don't know, just holds up and stands the test of time. I also really enjoyed the remake that they did, but Slumber Party Massacre is a hell of a fun time if you're a horror slasher fan, and it's one that if you haven't seen, you absolutely need to right away. But the next film I gotta recommend, and again, this just highlights the greatness again of 1982. So many incredible films came out this year, but First Blood came out in 1982, and this is easily a top 3 Sylvester Stallone performance as John Rambo. And it's just one of the coolest action films, action survival films. He doesn't actually kill anybody in this movie, but I just love everything about this film. I love the character of John Rambo, just the trauma of his past of being in Vietnam, and just the simple story of him going into this town and just wanting to get something to eat. And the sheriff, played by Brian Dennehy, played brilliantly by Brian Dennehy, just cannot let that happen. He can't let this outsider into the town. So they're at odds the whole movie. It's great. Both of the performances are great. But it's cool because you can see both sides. You can see John Rambo, you can see the sheriff's side of the issue that they're having. And it's just a brilliant film across the board with some great performances, some great characters, some great cinematography, and just some iconic moments that you'll never forget after watching this movie. The scene where he breaks down at the end is just one of the best scenes I've seen in any movie before. Just Sylvester Stallone is absolutely great in his performance here. Easily, it might be his best performance of all time. I love him in Copland, but this might take the cake. Now, this is the Blu-ray. I pulled out my retro VHS slipcover edition of this. Now, I do have it in 4K. I have the 4K Steelbook, but I would recommend that you pick up the 4K of this. You can get that for $12 right now, which is an absolute steal. It looks amazing in 4K, so I highly recommend that. And getting into another Scream Factory version of a classic 1982 film, it just blows my mind when I was going through all of these movies in 1982, but Creepshow came out in 1982. Now, this is the film directed by George A. Romero and written by, all the stories were written by Stephen King. And it's such a great anthology horror film. I just love all the segments in this movie. I grew up with Creepshow too. Admittedly, I did not see the first Creepshow until like 5 or 6 years ago. But when I watched it, I was like, damn, is this movie so much better than the second one? And I love the second one. I grew up watching the second one. But this one, I love all of the shorts in this one. The one with Stephen King and the moss growing is excellent. The first one with Happy Father's Day beginning is awesome. It's just such a visually awesome because it's like comic book influence. So you see like those comic book tinges throughout, just like the animation style and just them kind of panning out. I feel like it's really original in that filmmaking aspect of it because I don't feel like a lot of movies at this time were doing stuff like that. So just visually, it's very interesting. It's also creepy as well. Obviously, it's Creepshow. Just some spooky segments, some spooky imagery, and just some really fun moments to be had here. Like the segment with Ted Danson, Leslie Nielsen. Like there's some legitimate stars in this movie. You have Ed Harris in this film as well. He's in the first segment. So you have some legitimate stars in here, and it's just a really awesome anthology horror film with two of the masters of horror, Stephen King and George A. Romero, bringing this one to life. And it's just fantastic, influenced by the 50s horror comics. And this Scream Factory edition, you just don't beat it. I love it. It is my favorite Scream Factory edition. I love that they did the hardbox edition. It's almost like Arrow video quality. I wish they would do this on more stuff, but for some reason, Creepshow is like one of the only ones they did it to. They do it. It's like the same, durability and material that they do with the Friday the 13th box set and The Fly, which is awesome as well. But for some reason, this is the only like singular movie that they've done this for. I'm sure somebody else can point to another one, but it's an incredible box set release. You can still get it for $34.96. But what I will say is this movie is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year, and Scream Factory hasn't announced the October titles yet. I have a feeling that this one might be in very heavy contention to get a 4K release later this year from Scream Factory. Either October, November, or maybe December, who knows. But I have a feeling that we're going to get this one on 4K. I don't know, I just have that feeling. But Creepshow in 4K would look fantastic, but this is a great addition if you want to own it. It's $34.96 right now, and I highly recommend this movie. It's one of the best horror anthologies of all time. So getting into some more horror movies. Now, this is a movie that I did not love growing up. I only really gained appreciation for it in recent years, but that's Halloween 3. Halloween 3 came out in 1982. This is such a cool little movie. It's not a Halloween movie in respect of, you know, Michael Myers is not killing people in this film. This is the only movie without Michael Myers. This was the time when they were trying to make the Halloween franchise like an anthology franchise. The first two were focused on Michael Myers, and they said, let's start telling different stories, but using the Halloween name, the Halloween brand, to kind of sell this as a new franchise, and every single movie will be a different horror experience and story. And they did that with this one. It failed miserably, so that's why with Halloween 4 they went back to Michael Myers, and they've been Michael Myers ever since. But they meant this to be a horror anthology series, starting with this one, Season of the Witch. This is a really fun movie. It's a sci-fi horror movie. It's definitely got those sci-fi elements in there as well. It's really cool though. It's a really cool movie. It's got a creepy atmosphere. And like I said, I've gained appreciation for it. Now, when I was a kid, I bought Halloween 1, 2, and 3. I actually saw Halloween 4 first, and then I went back and I said, all right, I'm going to get Halloween 1, 2, and 3. I watched Halloween 1 and 2 and loved them. And then I popped this one and I'm like, where the hell is Michael Myers? I'm like, this movie sucks. So I went like my entire life, like not liking this movie and never wanting to return to it until recently. But it's a really cool movie. It's got a great score. It might be John Carpenter's best score. I love the score in this movie, and it's just a really cool movie. It unfolds and develops in very interesting ways. It's kind of a mystery, and it really pays off, I think, by the end. And you got Tom Atkins in this movie. He's Tom Atkinson all over the place. He's badass. He is full Tom Atkins in this movie, and I definitely love him here. Tom Atkins is also in Creepshow as well, and he pops up in a lot of the 80s horror movies for sure. But love Halloween 3 now. It's a really fun movie, and it looks spectacular in 4K. You can get this Scream Factory Edition for $27.96, and you'll probably still get this hard box case as well. I know I just talked about Halloween 2 also, but yeah, I had to mention Halloween 3. It's a really underrated Halloween film that I feel like a lot of people maybe feel the same way that I did growing up, not liking it and just haven't returned to it. But I'm telling you right now, go back, rewatch this one, gain some appreciation for the movie. Just think of it as a film that's not supposed to be centered around Michael Myers. Just put Halloween, Michael Myers, all that stuff out of your head and just enjoy it for the horror sci-fi experience that it was meant to be. So moving into more comedic territory, we're going to pull out 48 Hours, this Paramount Presents edition, which you can get for $22.99. I love the cover on this one as well, but this is a real fun movie. I watched this year during my Buddy Cop month and really enjoyed this one. I have a bit of a controversial opinion though, or at least I feel like it's controversial. I like this movie way more than I like Beverly Hills Cop. And I really don't understand the love for Beverly Hills Cop, but I absolutely love this movie. I think that Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte had way better chemistry than Eddie Murphy and Judge Reinhold in that movie. And I just feel like more people need to be talking about this one versus Beverly Hills Cop. I think that Eddie Murphy is way funnier in this film than he is in Beverly Hills Cop. And just a lot more iconic moments, some really interesting cinematography, some brutal violence. This movie was directed by Walter Hill, the same guy that did The Warriors. So it's just a really cool movie with some cool direction and just funny moments. And like I said, the chemistry between the two, Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, is super strong in this movie. Definitely one of the better buddy cop movies that I've ever seen. So 48 Hours is a high recommendation. That Paramount Presents looks incredible as well. And 1982, like I said, there's just some bangers in this year. I had to talk about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. This is a great high school coming of age comedy movie, just classic teen comedy from the 80s that deals with some very important and sensitive subject matter, and it tackles all of that stuff very well. all the while being this like fun, outlandish teen comedy movie. Just some of the most iconic moments in teen comedy history. This was, directed by Amy Heckerling, who would go on to direct Clueless in the 90s. A screenplay by Cameron Crowe, and it's just a great movie. It's got Sean Penn as Spicoli. Spicoli, man. It's got Judge Wright. It's got the classic, absolutely classic Phoebe Cates scene where she gets out of the pool. It's a wonderful scene if you haven't seen it. And yeah, I just love this movie. It's got Jennifer Jason Leigh. She gives a wonderful, fantastic performance in this movie. And it's just, I don't want to say it's underrated. A lot of people really like this movie, but it's, I don't know, it really held up for me when I rewatched it last year when I got this Criterion. I would absolutely recommend that you buy this Criterion. It's $19.99 right now during the Criterion sale. And it's so worth it. It's just a fantastic movie. And they look great with this 4K scan. But I love Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I have not always appreciated this movie, but I really do now. I think it's one of the more important movies of 1982. And I think you absolutely need to watch it if you haven't yet already. It's also got Nicolas Cage in it. It's like his first movie, and he doesn't speak. He's just like a cook in the background, which is pretty cool. But yeah, $19.99 is an absolute steal for this Criterion edition. And my next pick, guys, is an iconic horror movie that's getting ready to get a 4K release. That is right, guys. They're here. How could we not talk about Poltergeist, which came out in 1982, directed by Tobe Hooper? You see what I'm talking about with 1982? Damn, I already recommended some complete bangers, and I'm leaving some off the list. Like I said, so there's some stuff that you're gonna be like, what? I can't believe you didn't talk about this one. There's so many great movies, but Poltergeist is one of the greatest horror movies of all time, produced by Steven Spielberg. It was directed by Tobe Hooper. Now, there is the controversy with Steven Spielberg and them saying that Steven Spielberg directed most of this movie. You can definitely tell that this has a Spielbergian quality and tone to it when you're watching it, but it's also very spooky and very scary as well. And some of those vibes I feel like are all Tobe Hooper. I don't feel like Steven Spielberg has the ability to get that scary with some of the stuff that happens in this movie. So it's just a great horror movie. It is scary, but it's also at the same time, it's kind of family friendly. Like, I would recommend that you could probably watch this with like your 11, your 12, your 13-year-olds. Maybe not before the age of 10. It just depends on your kid. Like when I was a kid, I was watching Jason and Freddy chop everybody up at 9, 10 years old. But it just depends on your kid and their tolerance for those kind of spooky movies. But it's just a great movie. Craig T. Nelson's fantastic. The little girl, I forget her name, she's great in the movie. It's a great story. It's scary. It has that just epic quality to it. It's almost like an adventure movie as well. And it's just great. Like, if you have not seen Poltergeist, it's one of the greatest horror movies of all time for a reason. And you absolutely need to check it out. Now, I have this lenticular slipcover that I don't care if the 4K comes out. I'm never going to get rid of this one. It's a great lenticular, but underneath you have the regular Blu-ray. You can get it right now for $14.99 on Blu-ray, but I highly recommend if you don't own this, don't get it right now. Wait until the 4K comes out because it's supposed to be coming out in September sometime. I think September the 10th or something. Tune into the Physical Media Report because I announce all this stuff every single week. So let's move into more international cinema. We have an Italian giallo film that I'm going to recommend, and this is one that's getting a 4K, I think, either this week or next week, and that is Tenembre. Now, this is the Synops edition. I have not watched this edition yet, but I saw this movie. I think I rented it off of TV a couple of years ago. I love this movie. It's up there with Deep Red for me. Both of these are in contention to my favorite Dario Argento movie. And if you don't know Dario Argento, he's one of the most influential Italian horror filmmakers of all time. Go check out Suspiria, check out Tenebre, Deep Red. A lot of his movies have great Arrow Video 4K editions, so you'll probably want to get all of those because they look fantastic. But Tenebre is a really cool movie. It's one I've been calling to get a 4K release for the longest time, so I'm super excited to rewatch this one very soon and talk about it with you guys more in depth when I watch that 4K transfer. Whichever one I get. I haven't decided if I'm going to get the Arrow version or the Synops 4K version because it's getting both. But this is a great movie. Great movie with some great moments, some great kills, some great imagery, just very brutal. And I love the score, again, by Goblin. I love the Goblin score in Suspiria. That's probably my favorite of their scores, but this one is like in close contention to one of my favorite scores of all time, horror scores. I love it. I listen to it all the time. I love the score in this. But yeah, highly recommend you check this one out. It's definitely worth it. You can get this edition. Like I said, it's getting ready to get upgraded to 4K, so you might not want to check it out just yet, but it's $25.49 just for the regular Blu-ray edition. Right now, the 4K is like 45 bucks. So if you just want to get the Blu-ray, I'm sure this looks great. Synopsis does a great job with their Blu-ray transfers. But yeah, you might want to wait till the 4K comes out. Now this last one, look, this could be a number. This is an iconic film. This is one of the biggest films of all time. That could be a number of movies. There's a lot of stuff that I have not called out yet, but we're on the last one right here. And this is this might be probably in my top 10 horror movies of all time. It might be my top 20 movies of all time, period. I think I've decided in recent months that this is probably my favorite John Carpenter movie as well. And of course, I am talking about John Carpenter's iconic film, The Thing, which came out in 1982. It actually came out the same day as another very iconic science fiction movie that I did not recommend in this video, but maybe I will in later videos. But what can you say about The Thing? Like, I've done a full review on this one. This 4K release is fantastic, and you can get it right now for $18.34. I think on Groove you can probably get it for like $13 or $14, a little bit cheaper. But this is a great 4K release. It looks fantastic on 4K. Like, it's just one of those instances where the practical effects that they use in this movie, they just look so incredible with that 4K transfer. The work they did in this film with the practical effects is absolutely astounding. It is amazing. Like, you will never see another horror film with better practical and special effects than this movie right here. And it just looks amazing in 4K. Like, you don't know, like, it looks real. It still looks great. Like, some movies you can tell, like, when you go back and watch them in 4K, you're like, this doesn't look as good as it did back in 1982, but that is not the case here. Like, they look even better in 4K, and it just goes to show you the work that they did back in the day on some of these movies with these special and practical effects, the time that it took to do this stuff, and the commitment that they put into all of these models and just effects work and all that stuff. It really just stands the test of time like nothing else. Like, no CGI will ever stand the test of time nowadays. Like, these practical effects, the work that they did is timeless. It holds up, and it absolutely deserves to hold up. But The Thing is incredible. If you haven't seen it, Kurt Russell is fantastic in this film. He gives a great performance. Everybody in this movie is great. Just the claustrophobia in this movie, the tension, just all of this group of guys hold it up in this Arctic research facility, trying to figure out like what's going on, trying to figure out like who's the alien, just the paranoia, the claustrophobic nature. It's terrifying, and John Carpenter does such a great job directing this film and just really setting the tone and the pace and the mood of this movie right from the beginning, and the escalation of events. The level of suspense throughout this film is just unlike anything else you will ever see. It moves up on my list every single time I watch it. It's just one of the best films of all time. It is John Carpenter's masterpiece. I love Halloween. I do love Halloween. But this is John Carpenter's masterpiece. If you have not seen this movie, check it out right away. Again, it's available on Amazon for $18.34. So there you have it, guys. That is my 10 recommendations from 1982. That was a difficult list to make. And again, I know there's tons of movies I left off the list. Some stuff from 1982 I don't own in the collection, so I definitely need to. But guys, let me know your picks down below. Also, let me know what you think of my picks in that comment section below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications, and follow me on all my social media accounts. Those links are in the description, and we'll see you next time.